First of all, hi, thank you for joining us. My name is Pam Bateman. I'm from Open Sight Hampshire. We support people with sight loss across the county. Although we are in this very strange period right now with lockdowns and second lockdowns and things like that, it's really very much wanting to reassure you that we are still here, we are still available to support you with any of your sight loss needs, whether that is equipment, whether that's information, whether that's needing lanyards or calendars or any kind of like low vision support, then please do get in touch. We are here. These are all my contact numbers here, but obviously they will be available at the end of the session as well. I'm actually joined here today by Ian Hughes from Associated Optical. He is going to go through some of the filters that Associated Optical use, and also some of the other bits as well, so some of his other equipment as well. But without any, I think what I will do is I'll hand you over to Ian, and he'll talk you through some of his equipment. We'll also do like a Q&A session at the end. So with the Q&A session, if you want to put something in the chat box, or we can come to you if you're struggling a little bit to use the chat box, just raise your hand. But what I will do is I will hand you over to Ian. So thank you, Ian.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Thank you, Pam. Thank you for the introduction. So as Pam said, my name is Ian Hughes. I work for a company called Associated Optical, and we are a UK-based company in South Buckinghamshire, in Burnham, and we are the UK exclusive distributor for Eschenbach optics. For cocoon fitovers, which we're going to talk about today, as well as some bioptics from Occitec also. But today, like Pam said, we're going to talk about the fitovers and about the cocoons in particular. So just to give a little bit of a background, really. So for the past 37 years, I think it's 37 years this month, Associated Optical have been providing the industry with innovative solutions and solutions for charities like yourself and for end users via opticians and for the NHS and through hospitals. And constantly, we're always looking at seeing what the end users need and demand, really. And it became apparent that the low vision sector was looking for a more aesthetically pleasing alternative to some of the existing fitovers that were on the market. And so back in 2016, we set about trying to find something that matched the Eschenbach quality of product, but like I say, was aesthetically pleasing at the same time, as well as being affordable. And that's when we came across a company called Live Eyewear, which are based in the United States and in California, and they make a brand of fitovers called Cocoons. And so we started out with the low vision cocoons, and recently, beginning of this year, we took on the range of polarized fitovers as well. So we'll talk about the different low vision ones and the different fitover and the different polarized lenses later on. But I wanted to start off by talking a little bit about light, and we're going to talk about light sensitivity, but also light in general. Light is really, really important. And sometimes I think it's overlooked, and we can look at light negatively if we try to cut it out, whereas actually we can control the type of light and the different lights that we can let into our eyes, which is where the filters come in. That can just mean that we can enhance what sight you've got left and to make life a lot easier. So when we're talking about light, as we do get older, it's perfectly natural that we need more light than when we were younger. So some reports say it's 3 to 4 times more light. Some say it's up to 20 times more light is needed by somebody over 60 than they do as a child. And that's because if you think about the fact that your lens is clouding over, you may be getting the start of cataracts. The lens is not letting as much light through. So we're just needing that extra light. So when we're looking at magnification, for instance, it's important that we look for a magnifier that's got the brightest light initially to see if that can enhance what vision you've got already. And then with the Eschenbach range, you can then change the light temperatures depending what you need. So if the white light is a bit too bright, which is the 6,500 Kelvin, we can then reduce that down to make it yellow 4,500 down to the orange 2,700. So we can control light in that aspect, but we start out when we're talking about light, it's like I say, it's not a negative, trying to control it. So parking magnification light, looking at light kind of all around us and in general, and how we can control it with filters. So when we're looking at the type of filters we can choose, then light sensitivity is one of the things that kind of first come up, and it's usually the go-to. So for instance, if you've gone into a low vision clinic or if you've gone into your local optician, you're usually going to ask them for something because everything's too bright. You're stepping out into a bright day and you can't see because there's too much light everywhere. So that means that we have to look at a filter that can control that. What sometimes may be overlooked is the fact that what we can also look at is how we can reduce certain light and certain wavelengths to increase contrast. And by increasing contrast, what you may be able to do then is kind of sharpen things up. And whereas you've got maybe hazy edges on things like looking at the TV or the door frames, you can put on a filter that will enhance the contrast and make everything a lot sharper. So we'll have a look at those kind of filters as well. So we'll go through all of those. Also, we're going to be talking about controlling high energy and blue light. Now, again, there's lots of different things in the marketplace, in the industries that tell you blue light's bad for that, blue light's bad for this, this is good, this is bad. Again, what we're doing, we're not looking at how it's a health benefit for this or anything like that. It's just to see how we can control different light waves to enhance your sight and to make things a lot clearer for you. So before we start talking about the actual lenses and going into the different lens colors, I want to talk about the actual frames because the frames are really, really important. So cocoons themselves, what they are professional grade fitovers, designed to fit over your glasses. However, you can have smaller frames. So if you don't wear spectacles, they're still really, really important. So if I was to get a frame for you here as an example. So this is the cocoon frame. This is made out of a ballistic nylon, which means that it's soft to touch. And when you're wearing two pairs of glasses, it may be that you don't feel how irritating it can be when you first put them on. But by having the ballistic nylon, the soft touch, but also the ability to adjust them yourself, it just means that if you have been wearing them for a while, or if it's raining like today, or you're getting sweaty because it's hot, they're not going to slide forward. You can just adjust them yourself. One of the beauties of the cocoon fitovers also is the fact that because they're made from this material, you can actually twist them. So if you were to sit on them, leave them on the car seat and somebody accidentally sit on them, they're not going to break. And we're really, really confident in that, so that we actually give them a lifetime manufacturing warranty on the frames themselves. One of the most important parts of the cocoon frame also is the actual design of the top, the side and the bottom. So from the top, you can see that we have a covering. So unlike normal sunglasses or unlike my normal glasses where light can actually get in, the top part there stops the light creeping in. Also, 70% of light can actually bounce up off the surface below. So what we've actually got here is an undercarriage, so that again we're cutting out that light. Cocoons are actually called cocoons because the way that they actually cocoon your eyes. So when you've got them on here, so for instance, what we've got there, if I was to turn to the side and try and do the finger test, I can't get my finger in without touching the frame, which is really important. So for instance, if I was to get a pair of prescription sunglasses and I had them in this kind of frame, fantastic for me looking out, but if I was look to the side and do the finger test, this is where all light's coming in. So it's really important to have the best fitting. Regarding the sides, what you can also see here is that we have the side shields that match the front. But with these as well, these are actually injection molded into the frame. So even though you may see things that look similar on the internet, we did a test and we bought one there's no comparison. You can actually push it out, which obviously defeats the object because you're letting light get into there. But also that's really important that if you are suffering with dry eyes, something like that, where the wind is quite an irritant, by having something like this, then not only are you getting the protection from the front and the side, you're actually stopping the wind coming through as well. So when we're talking about the lenses, rather than just the actual filters or the colors at the moment, the actual lenses themselves, when we first got the cocoons and was doing the research, like we like to do on all our new products, really digging down and finding out why they work, it became apparent that the actual lenses themselves are 25% clearer than most other fit over brands on the market, which is really, really important. It's one of my biggest things is that we want to maximize what usable sight somebody's got. And so if we can have the clearest lens possible, then obviously that's only going to be a benefit because it's going to let the right kind of light in and make everything as easy as possible to use that usable sight that we've got left. We couple this with a hard coating. So we actually give the lenses again a year's warranty against scratching. So if you've got them and you've scratched them within the year, send them back. We'll get those sorted for you. Not a problem at all. Now, regarding the actual frames again, Cocoon do a variety of different frames. I mentioned earlier that you can have these as fit overs, or you can have them as no prescription. So if I took my glasses off, I could wear these if I had contacts in, but I can also use a frame and I can pop these over the top, and then I could use those whilst I'm kind of out and about. Now the Cocoon frames with the collection that we have in the UK will cover 99% of all spectacle frames. So it means that you haven't got to worry about having a pair that's not going to fit. We've got a different selection. So we have things from the small, which you can just see on there, through to something which is a bit more elongated, to something that's a lot deeper. And what we have available on the Cocoons website, on the Associated Optical website, and also you'll be able to get this from Pam as well, is a fitting guide. And what that fitting guide is all the frames listed with a red box, and you take your spectacles off and you put your glasses into the box to see if they fit. Or failing that, what you can do is if you give us the measurement of the frame, then we can work out which the best frame is that you need, and then we can get that sent out to you, or you can collect it depending on obviously the lockdown issues that we have at the moment. So just before I go on, is there any questions regarding the frames at this stage? No, nothing come through? Absolutely fine, no problem at all. Okay, smashing. So what I want to do now then is start talking about the actual colours. Now, when we first started getting into the colours and looking at filters, it was very apparent that it was very eye condition led, which means that I would be going into low vision practitioners, or the best example is I went into an ECLO, eye clinic liaison officer's room in a hospital, and on the wall was all the different eye conditions with the different color lenses that would be beneficial for. And it kind of just got me thinking, because that's not what I'd been taught. It's not what I'd kind of found when speaking to end users. And so obviously with the information that we had from Live Eyewear and the kind of information that we've got in the training, we kind of wanted to look at it slightly differently, and getting feedback is from different practitioners. We found that actually there may be a slightly different way of doing it. And so what we don't want to do is negate what eye condition somebody might have, but we actually want to find out what they're struggling with. So for example, I was at a practice in Gloucester a couple of years ago now, a couple of summers ago, and I was seeing an end user for a different product. And that patient came in with their friend, and it was a beautifully bright summer's day. And she came in, she kind of sat behind me. I was with the end user, and while the end user and the patient was playing with one of the digital products, I was having a chat, and I was like, "Oh, I can see you've got your yellow filter on. May I ask what eye condition you've got, what you're struggling with?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, I've got macular." I'm like, "Oh, okay, no worries. Why are you using the yellow today? Because it was absolutely glorious." She's like, "I've got macular." I'm like, "All right, what do you struggle with?" "Well, I struggle with the sunlight. It's really bright." So I'm like, "Right, okay. Do me a favor, pop outside with these two different colours. Those are boysenberry and a hazelnut, which we'll come on to. See what you think." She came back in. She's like, "Oh my God, can I take this one? Can I take this one?" I'm like, "You can't, let me sort it. Let me finish with your friend, and then we'll kind of look at that." And so it kind of made me realise that I think sometimes people have kind of gone down a road because that's their eye condition. And yes, there is some theory to what works best for somebody else, what works best for someone. However, when we go through the different colours, one thing I will say is that it is all subjective. So yes, there are filters that lend themselves better to different things, but it is very much subjective. But what it means is we can have a group or a selection of products that we choose from, rather than having 25 different styles and colors and things that we have to choose. We can go, right, actually, this is what I'm struggling with. I know that this lens does this. So let's look at this lens to enable that task to be, or solution to be provided for that task. Also, it's worth bearing in mind that probably one color is not going to do all the tasks that you want it to do. So again, using examples, lockdown one, my next door neighbor, having a chat over the fence, as you do, and talking about his mum who was going for Lucentis injections. And we're chatting away, and we're talking about the hospitals, and he's like, "Oh no, I'm still going. I'm kind of, she's just really struggling with it again because it was really bright." I'm like, "Oh, do you realize kind of what I do, etc.?" He's like, "No." So we kind of had a chat, and what it was, she was struggling with the brightness. So we had one type of product that I showed him, and then he's like, "Oh, she's also struggling when she's kind of out and about in the early mornings, in dusk and at dawn and that kind of thing, and evenings." I was like, "Oh, okay. So we're going to look at, we need another product as well." And actually, she went for two different colours because she had different tasks that she wanted to provide solutions for. So it's worth bearing all that in mind. So I want to start on looking at controlling glare and looking at controlling light, and if you're a bit light sensitive. So one of the things that we have to realize is that we can't have anything too dark. So I think sometimes there's been a misconception that if you're struggling with brightness, maybe if you've just had a cataract taken out, that if you go for the darkest lens possible, that's going to be the best. Well, that will stop light transmission going through to the eye. However, what it may do is actually reduce your visual acuity. So one of the things you don't want to do is to reduce the light too much that you can't see as well. We have to get that balance. So there will be contrast sensitivity tests that you may want to take on, and you can do a visual acuity test that you can do. But to be honest, very much this kind of trying the filters is very much a functional thing. So you're going to be able to pop something on and go, "Actually, do you know what? I can see my husband's smile for the first time," or "I can see the writing on the walls a lot clearer over there." That's the kind of thing we're looking for, not necessarily one line on a chart, because how does that transmit into real life? So we need to make sure that we're not too dark and that we're just cutting out the right kind of light. So I'm going to start off with the boysenberry. So it says the boysenberry. The boysenberry, which is this one here, is actually the colour itself. The boysenberry name is a cross between a raspberry and a blackberry, which I didn't know until we got this. but everybody keeps asking, so I thought I'd do the research. So what the boysenberry does, the boysenberry actually cuts down 15% of light. So only 15% of the light will come in, it'll cut down the 85% of the other light. And if you can see there, it's got the kind of plummy kind of hue to it. I've kind of got the boysenberry jumper to match today, I think. Now, what this is really, really good for is cutting out the light, but also what it does, it cuts out 90% of blue light. Now, blue light is really important for us. So before we kind of, like I mentioned earlier about kind of touching on blue light is important because it helps us control our circadian cycle and sleep patterns, that kind of thing. But in the early part of the spectrum, and I don't want to go too technical, in the early part of the spectrum between 400 and 450 nanometers, it may be an irritant for us. Not an irritant that we can feel, but an irritant that we just can't see as crisply because of it. Now, when we pop these on, or when people have popped these on in the past, it's had that kind of, oh, that's nice, that's soothing because it's cut that down. And what happens is the blue light between 400 and 450 is a shorter wavelength. So that means it moves about more. We can't see it moving about, but it moves about more. And when you've got days like today where it may be murky and wet and miserable, then the water and the moisture acts as an amplifier. So it can make it a little bit more irritating for us. And so by having the boysenberry, what it does is cutting the light down, but you can also help control the glare that you're going to get, but also maybe enhance that contrast slightly by cutting out that wavelength of light. So we found this really, really interesting because previously we'd never had a boysenberry lens. We'd had the greys, we'd had the browns, we'd had the oranges, and we'd had the lemons. We'd never had a boysenberry. And it was really interesting when we didn't have a grey lens in the cocoons initially, because grey lens is not perceived to be a low vision colour, but I'll come on to that. But it was very interesting to find that people will pop this on and have, in a clinical environment, 1 or 2 lines improvement on the reading chart. But it's really interesting. If you've not tried the boysenberry, pop them on. It really does make a difference. So if you're struggling with brightness, glare, bit of light sensitivity, try the boysenberry. The next one within the light, the control of light and the brightness is the hazelnut. So with the hazelnut here, this is more of your traditional brown, your amber that you may be used to. And again, this takes the light transmission down to just 18%. So again, not too dark. We're not looking at cutting down all of the light apart from 3 and 4% because we still need to be able to see and have a good visual acuity as well. Now this cuts down more blue light. So again, it can reduce that invisible irritation that just makes it a lot crisper and a lot easier for you to see with that. So you can see the hazelnut. And this is more of a traditional sunglass color that you may have been used to in the past. So it's always worth giving them when you're looking at the control of light and to stop the brightness with that one. So this one, again, goes slightly higher with the nanometers. So when we talk about nanometers, again, I don't want to be too technical. UVA, UVB, UVC stops at 400 nanometers. That's your kind of standard. Any sunglasses you buy from the opticians will stop at 380, 400 nanometers. It's the bit over that where we control the light using filters that can be the irritation and the bits where we can control light to make things sharper and to enhance contrast. And so with the hazelnut here, ours goes that little bit further and goes to 410 nanometers. So you're adding that little bit more protection with that one. Now, which links then me onto the grey, because as I mentioned, the grey is not perceived as a low vision colour because it only covers up to 400 nanometers. So it's still protecting you from UV, not an issue, but it's just the fact that it stops at that 400 nanometers. However, you're still providing protection against glare And if that's the kind of color that you're used to and you prefer, then it's still going to be extremely beneficial because you've got all your protection at the sides as well. And what you'd find with the gray lens color is that none of the colors change. It's just making things slightly darker. So if you're looking to control light and brightness, then you need to be looking really at your 3 different colors, your hazelnut, your boysenberry, and your grays. Okay. So moving on, I now want to look at contrast and how we can enhance contrast and make things sharper. And we can do that in 3 different frames, 3 different colors, 3 different filters. I want to start with the most popular, hands down, which is your lemon. So this lemon one here is absolutely fantastic because it does actually lots and lots of different purposes. So for instance, this was the one that the neighbor had for dawn and for dusk. Because what this is doing is this is again, excuse me, controlling the different wavelengths of light. And actually this cuts down quite a lot of the blue light and actually goes past that 450 mark. It actually goes to 470. So it's stopping a lot of that movement. So it can just sharpen things up slightly. So when it is early morning, dusk, dawn, that kind of thing, then this can kind of sharpen things up quite nicely. So if you've had a cataract, if you've got a cataract at the moment and you've been delayed and everything's quite hazy, then what that can do is stop the certain wavelengths of light coming in that might just make light that is not splitting because of your cataract and make life a lot easier. So try the yellow one for your contrast enhancement, but also one that I would say that I didn't focus on as much. I would kind of say that I did the thing that you should never do. I looked at it and went, actually, orange, who's going to wear an orange? Who uses an orange? Really? It's a bit too bright. But actually, do you know what? If you actually dig down and speak to the people that use it and actually look at what it actually does, it is so popular and it's so beneficial because what this does, this cuts down all of the blue light. So this cuts down every single part of the blue spectrum. So if that's really going to be an irritant for you, so maybe for instance, you're looking at really sharpening things up because you may have glaucoma, where things are hazy, then this might be quite beneficial. So I'm not saying you've got glaucoma, you need an orange, but if you've got glaucoma, try the orange, try the yellow, see which one you prefer. It was quite telling. Recently, I was at a practice on the South Coast, not too far from you guys, and was actually again trying different digital products and was going through different options, and the screen quality was fantastic. But the gentleman using it had glaucoma and it was just struggling, and it's like the screen's not clear enough, and we tried changing the contrasts on the screen and it wasn't making too much difference. And I was like, let me try this because I'm applying theory to see how it is beneficial. Pop them on and it's like, oh, yeah, the screen's actually better. Yeah, a little bit better. I was like, okay, have a look around the store. And he had a look around the shop and the practice. And he's like, yeah, I can read that over there. Yeah, I can see that better now. And I can see that better. And so it was one of these where he never even considered it. He was always thinking, well, no, I've got sunglasses to stop light, but it's not that. It's the fact that we're controlling certain parts of that wavelength that might be an irritant for you. So by having that on, the orange, it just sharpened things up. And one of the things that was quite apparent was that actually, like I said, like doing the wrong thing was that the aesthetics and the actual look of the lens, it's got nothing to do with me. It's not about what I like or what I prefer. It's what's beneficial for the end user. Obviously, with the cocoons, we have the benefit of having an aesthetically pleasing design, so that actually they do look like a pair of sunglasses. So you're not advertising somebody's badge of visual impairment. You are actually saying, actually, these look mainstream, albeit in this case with the orange lenses. So worth trying the orange for the contrast enhancement. What I'd also like to pop into this sector or section of kind of the controlling and the increasing contrast and sharpness is this one here. Now this is called this is the Twilight. Now in the past, when I've presented the Twilight to hospitals and to sight charities, it's been kind of like, Ian, what are you doing? Because these are actually designed for nighttime driving. And I appreciate that some of you are not driving anymore. However, you will still be passengers in a car. You will still find a benefit to these. Now, what these were designed for, so these are actually, you can see that they're almost clear. They've got a slight residual tint on there that just changes it slightly. I'm trying to see if you can see with the white backdrop. And so actually these let through 93% of the light. So everything you look out at is very, very similar. It might have a slight hue to it. But what these have been designed for are specifically to control the certain wavelength, that high energy 400 and 450 nanometers of light that I mentioned earlier causes that little bit of irritation. So what this could be is, again, days like today, you're off out and you're getting the irritation from the wind that's affecting your dry eye. You've got the start of a cataract, or you've got macular degeneration and things just aren't quite as sharp. Then what you can do is you can pop these on, and what these will do is then just stop that light from irritating you and just sharpen things up. And again, it's one of these where people go, that's just easier. And it's also quite nice if you are in an environment where maybe you're still working and you've got UV lights above you, artificial lights above you, that kind of thing. Or if you're working on a computer or you've got a CCTV, then that might be really, really beneficial. The best example I have with the Twilights is a gentleman that I saw. It was actually for a bioptic. So it was actually for a spectacle mounted telescope. And we were chatting away, and he was works for the Royal Mail. And he'd had some kind of issues with his optic nerve and some optic atrophy and different things like that. And he could only see the top line of the reading chart. So that's what he could see, best corrected. So with all the glasses and everything else, that's all he could see. And working for the Royal Mail, he was doing some kind of packaging, some packing, but he had his own desk, his own lamp, LED lamp above him, but he was getting lots of reflections off of the plastic, and it was just irritating him a little bit. So again, we went through, it's like, right, let's have a look at these. And he popped on the Twilight. And where we were in the test, in the practice, it was very much kind of, if you can imagine being sat over a dispensing desk. I was sat the opposite side, and just behind me, probably 3-4 foot away, was a door with a fire door sign. But also to the left of him was the poster advertising the open day that he was doing today. And he popped them on. He was looking around. He was like, oh, there's a notice on that board. I can't read it, but I can see there's a notice. I'm like, okay. And they looked to the side, and it's like, oh, it says low vision open day. I'm like, right, pop them off. He's like, no, it's just green. Pop them back on. Yeah, it says low vision open day. So for him, controlling that particular wavelength of light made it so beneficial for him with his visual acuity. So that took that invisible irritation down and just made it that he could see a lot more clearer. And for him, it wasn't necessarily that he needed a £3,000 machine. It was for him, a £75 pair of Twilights made all the difference and made it that he could see a lot easier. So worth bearing in mind, whether or not you're a driver or not, kind of computer use, artificial light, really, really beneficial. What I also want to do is talk about and mention polarized lenses. Now, because you are predominantly near the coast, I appreciate if you kind of Petersfield, Hampshire way and that kind of stuff, you're not as close as, to the coast as kind of your Southamptons and your Portsmouths and whatnot. But you're closer to the sea than I am. So I think it's really important that we look at a polarized lens and how a polarized lens might be beneficial, because not only is it beneficial when you are at the coast, again, on days like today where it's been raining, you may be out and about, and you just find that the sun's coming out and you're getting all the glare bouncing off the wet surface. Okay, so what a polarized lens does, so here I have a polarized yellow lens. So you can see, if we compare that to the lemon, that you can just see it's a little bit darker than the lemon. It's got that kind of gray undertone. But what a polarized lens does, it kind of acts as like a chemical Venetian blind, so that when that light is bouncing up off of the vertical surface, but the light bounces up vertically, it cuts that out, so that it just means that you can see clearly through it. And there's some great examples on the Cocoons website, the Cocoons UK website, where you can see the difference between looking out to the coast and looking at the sea or the lake, and you can see, or you can't see anything kind of in the distance. But when you put a polarized lens on, you can actually see the kind of waves and everything else. So again, when we're trying to maximize the sight that we have, if we can cut that out and make it as easy as we can see, so when you are out and about, it could be the difference of seeing the curb on the road, that kind of thing, or just seeing in the distance for crossing the road, that kind of safety, then it's worth considering the polarized lenses. And we do the polarized lens in an amber and the gray, but we'd also do it in the new yellow polarized as well, which is obviously really beneficial. So is there any questions at this stage? No, still all good? No worries. So just before we finish, I want to also talk about a new lens color or a new filter. And it was very much kind of, I mentioned earlier to you about the boysenberry lens. And with the boysenberry lens, when we got it, I told you that we'd had great success because we didn't have a gray and was comparing, and people were like, this is improving acuity and making life easier. And it was always kind of why. And like I said, one of the things we like to do is to find factual information and get you the right information that's available. And we wanted to see why a boysenberry was so successful. So we got the spectrographs. And what a spectrograph is or a spectral chart, and whatever you want to call it, is that it shows you what light waves it cuts out. So you can see sometimes that if you're looking at the hazelnut, it will kind of cut out these and then go up a little bit when it goes into the reds and things and then goes over. Whereas the twilight will go like that and then cut out the rest of it. And it started making us think about the boysenberry. And I was asked a question once, do you have anything to cut out migraines and headaches and things like that? And looking at the boysenberry, it kind of had in the write-up, it had all this kind of helps with migraines. I'm like, but why? So we started thinking, we started looking into it, and we came across a lens, and we got asked about a lens called an FL41, which stands for fluorescent 41, which we didn't have a clue about. To be honest, I'll be kind of straight up. I kind of like never heard of it before. So again, started doing our research. And what we found was that this FL41 lens was devised in the 90s, or was found out in the 90s at the University of Birmingham, that if you can control a certain wavelength of light, which is between 480 and 520 nanometers, which is the blue-green on the spectrum, then this can help people who suffer with migraines and headaches, because that can be a trigger for certain users. And again, it's like I mentioned earlier, it's that invisible, we can't see it, as in we can't see it irritating us, we can't see it moving, that kind of thing, but it has an effect. And the World Health Organization actually say that 50% of us suffer with these kind of headaches that could be triggered by this these certain wavelengths. And it's when we looked at the boysenberry, it's like, actually that actually does some of that, it reduces it down. But actually a few weeks ago, Eschenbach brought out an actual FL41 lens. And so what we have here are the lenses. So you can see there's it's very similar to the boysenberry in the fact that it's got the kind of similar kind of tint color. However, these come in a different variety of transmission. So you can have them 25% light transmission if you're wanting them to be quite dark, through to 50%, 75%. So if you are indoors, working on the computer specifically, or just watching the TV, then the lighter colour may be beneficial. Or if you're really light sensitive, photophobic, then it could be that the darker one would be more beneficial. Now, these come in a variety of frames as well, but again, it's that thinking about what end users need and what makes it beneficial. And you can see that from the front, it looks like a normal looking frame, but because we're talking about lighting that's predominantly going to be above you, from LED lights or from normal lighting, you can see here that we've actually got a lip to them at the top, so it just stops that light coming in. So when you've got them on, again, you can come down and you can just stop the light coming in from the top there. And we have these as a framed variety, but also have them as a clip-on also. So yeah, if you're suffering with headaches or concentrating, using the computer quite a lot, then that might be quite a beneficial lens for you to try, and to see what difference it makes for you. So any questions? I'm just trying to think if there's anything that I've not gone over. Okay, I've got one question just come up. Okay, so
Is that okay?
I've got that. So the question I've got here is, using computer a lot during lockdown, does the Twilight remove some of the floaters whilst looking at a light screen? I can't say it will do. Floaters, to be honest, are an irritation for me, as they'll be for kind of quite a few other people. To be honest, the one thing I was kind of taught when talking about floaters is that they are perfectly natural. If you can imagine, you've got a vase full of water, obviously similar to the one kind of on the shelf behind, and say it's on the shelf there, a certain part of that day, and it's got debris from leaves and things, certain parts of that day, the leaves will be kind of this side and I'll be able to see it, but then the water will kind of move and it'll be around the other side, so I'll not be able to see it. So I can't say definitively that the cocoons will make, the Twilight will make a difference. Worth giving it a go, but I can't say that they would make a massive difference there, if I'm being completely honest. Any other questions?
I think what we might do, if we just go down and unmute everybody one at a time, to see if there are any questions they want to ask.
Absolutely.
No, I don't think we've got any further questions at the moment.
Okay.
Well, really, just to say, Ian, thank you so much for coming on today. Really appreciate it. I must say, I learned something this morning, which I'm really interested in. Actually, it was interesting to say particularly about the polarized lens.
Yes. And
that glare, and that's something that I'm a sighted person, but it's definitely something that I've experienced, many occasions with the. It rains and then the sun comes out, especially when you're driving. It's actually really quite dangerous. So I might look at getting some myself, actually.
100%. It's the polarized lenses are. I would never buy a pair of sunglasses without a polarized lens now, which doesn't help me because obviously my prescription, but it's kind of higher cost. However, the difference it makes is just ridiculous because it's just making your eyes work less, and it's just making it, like I say, so much easier, and you're just cutting out that light, and it's, honestly, go and try it. Because I think one of the things is that people see polarized lens when they go to the opticians, and they don't know what they do.
No, exactly.
You just see it. It's like, oh, I need a grey or I need a brown. Oh, let's try it on. Oh, that looks nice. But it's like, but why? Why does it make that difference? But how does a polarized lens work? And honestly, you'll go to your opticians, or we can send one of these in, whichever it needs to be, and you'll pop it on and you'll go, how the hell have I waited so long to do this?
Yeah, definitely. No, and I think also as well about the frames as well. I think, again, that's really important to explain how the frames work, because I think it's about trying to block all the light out. Is that if it's no good, we're not just looking forward. And I think, I meet so many people doing this job who really struggle with glare. And it's just important and for me, so I've definitely learned a lot today. So it certainly helped me to support people that I see and support people who have any questions or queries. And also just say that anybody watching, we do have the cocoons here. If you'd like to order a pair, or want to ask me any questions, please get in touch, or contact Ian, please get in touch. All his details are there. And what's the retail price now for the cocoons?
The RRPs are, so we have them listed at 55,
Right, yeah.
but obviously you might have Open Sight member prices and things like that, so that's absolutely fine. Yeah.
Also, as well, to say for everybody who was on today, we have been recording this session. We'll be sending this out to you as a presentation. The presentation is also going to be available on our website as well. And just say as well, for anybody who's watching this as well, that the Open Sight, yes, we're having a really difficult time right now, but Open Sight is still very much open. We are still here. We can still support you. If you need any questions, queries, whatever, please do get in touch. And the same with Ian as well, and all the other suppliers that we work with as well. We are still here, so please don't struggle.
Is there a telephone number?
Please do get in touch.
Yeah. What is it?
023 8064 1244.
Sorry, that was Maggie just reading out the phone number.
No.
Okay, has anybody else got any other queries or questions before we close up? Nope.
Nope, perfect.
I think that's it. But yeah, thank you ever so much. As I normally, under normal circumstances, we run what we call our equipment and information days, which we run across the county. Obviously, Ian would normally be attending those. I think the next one we've got planned now is March next year. Hopefully that will go ahead. Who knows? We'll just keep you posted, really. But hopefully, get things back to as normal as possible. But until that time, so like I said, please do get in touch if you have any questions or queries. Okay.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for attending and listening. And I know that key message to say thank you. So appreciate everyone's time.